now, my friends, live from the USA, although he's flying back, I think, this weekend. It's our pal, our Van Friday Van Connor, with his 1, 2, 3 Freeview film recommendations. I listen to Van's 3, I match them with 3 of my own, and we kind of meet in the middle for your delight and delectation. Good morning, Van. How are things, matey? So you're flying back over the weekend. Is that a bit of a... You're hopping planes, I think, as well, aren't you, for your return journey?
I am indeed. Chicago, Dublin, all the way back to Heathrow. It's a long journey home, but, it's going to be worth it. I've got a Marvel movie to get back for, Mr. Ross.
And which one's that? What's on the horizon?
Well, Sam Raimi's, joining the MCU. We've got Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness next week. I can't wait.
Be big now. Before we get into our Freeview film recommendations, we just played a trailer of a film that Alex Irons has seen and I haven't. I'll be making that this weekend. Have you heard of a film called Rubber, in which a tyre with psychokinetic powers goes around making people's heads blow up? Have you heard of this film across your path?
I have indeed, yes. This was around the time I first started getting into Blu-ray properly. Yes, it's one that it sticks with you. Yeah. the rubber sticks with you, if you know what I mean.
Well, we played the trailer just now. I'm going to see it this weekend, but we're not starting with a horror film. Although I've got a horror film on the way. Tell us, please, about Ready or Not. Why have you chosen this one?
Well, we are starting with a horror movie.
I know nothing about this film. My horror movie knowledge is really lacking this morning.
Do you know what, Mr. Ross? Add this to your list for the weekend as well, because you're going to love this one. This is on tonight on Film 4, 10:45, and it stars Sam Weaving alongside Adam Brody, Henry Czerny, and Andy McDowell, who I hadn't seen the movie in a long, long time. I was so happy to see Andy McDowell in the movie again. This and Magic Mike were around about this, Magic Mike XSL in the last few years. Only things I've seen her in. But this follows a bride on her wedding night. She's married into the family of a sort of rich board game empire, and they have a tradition in this weirdly upper crust, very buttoned down family, whereby on the night that a new family member is brought into the fold, they play a game together, and the game is chosen at random by a seemingly magic box, and our new bride draws at random the game hide and seek, to much the shock and horror of her new in-laws, who announce that their tradition dictates that they have to play hide and seek in a very, very specific way. She has to be hunted to the death, and if she lives to see dawn, the family will lose their fortunes, and the satanic overlord that protects them and guides them will turn on them.
So I'm right then, it's not a horror film.
It's not a horror film. It's a perfectly understandable exploration.
Family drama, blimey.
From the directors of the new Scream requel as well. Like I say, Sam Weaving is in this, Adam Brody's in it. It's tons of gory, over-the-top, schlocky fun. You'll love it, Mr. Ross. It's an absolute blast. I've got a clip for you as they set the tone of this absolute hunt to the death for you.
Okay, so it's Film 4. It's tonight, 11:15. I'm setting the record called Ready or Not. Here's the trailer. My recommendation after this.
I have to call the others.
No, you don't. No. You can help me, please.
This doesn't end well for you. I just don't want to be the one to serve you up.
Daniel, I'm begging you.
I'm really sorry about all this. It's true what they say. The rich really are different. I'll give you a 10-second head start.
Wow, it's not the trailer at all, it's a key moment. I'm looking up this film, and it's directed or co-directed by a man called Matt Bettinelli-Olpin. The only way I know that name is from a great band, a kind of LA ska punk band, who made lots of songs about movies called Link 80. It must be the same fella, is it? Has he made the crossover from music into movies?
It's entirely possible. I only know him because he also went on to do Scream 5.
That's right, yeah. I think it's the same guy who's giving up the ska punk and is now making great sounding films. Well, I've gone for an absolute classic. It's my Western of the weekend. I always pick a cowboy film, but bear with me. Film 4. It's this afternoon at 3:00. Even if you've seen it recently, you might want to have it in the library for somebody in the family who's not seen it, or introduce somebody to the wonders of black and white cinematography, the acting skills of Gary Cooper, Grace Kelly looking impossibly beautiful as a 1880s Quaker soon-to-be wife-to-be. It's, of course, the story of a a sheriff or marshal is about to retire. He learns that one of the most notorious outlaws, evil personified man that he sent off to be hanged, has in fact escaped it on appeal. He's coming back for a showdown with his couple of his brothers and a friend or something on the high noon train into their town. Basically, Gary Cooper spends the film going around begging for help and doesn't get it. But it's a cracker. And as we know, Van, it prompted John Wayne and Howard Hawks to make the answer film Rio Bravo, with John Wayne turning down lots of offers of help, apart from the three types of people who help Gary Cooper's character. Some of the elements of data, what I love about it is, though, it's that kind of, it's a real-time film, effectively, and we don't get enough of those, and it's just an absolutely cracking film, I think, a real game-changer as a movie.
I think so as well. I think the performance from Cooper is something that always gets undersold. Like High Noon, I think is sold more in its iconography now than as a film in its own. I think Cooper's performance as well as I mean, Grace Kelly I don't think is particularly bad in it either. But Cooper's performance, I think, absolutely worth the movie.
And you've got this great old retired, the kind of man that Slim Pickens played in the Wild Bunch films, or Peckinpah's films. Lon Chaney Jr. plays a very cynical, old, sort of retired lawman. It's from 1952, so it's 70 years old this year. It's on 3 o'clock this afternoon on your Film 4. Here's a chunk of the trailer.
How about it?
You don't have to be a hero, not for me.
I'm not trying to be a hero. If you think I like this, you're crazy.
You risk your skin catching killers, and the juries turn them loose so they can come back and shoot at you again. And in the end, you wind up dying all alone on some dirty street for a tin star.
There's a limit how much you can ask a man. This is just plain committing suicide.
Do not forsake me, oh my darling. Here comes the trailer. Of course, Lloyd Bridges, Jeff's dad, is great in this film as a slightly weaselly, soon-to-be-appointed sheriff character.
Yes.
So, great film, a brilliant film. And in fact, it's one of those films when every time I see it, I notice something slightly different in it. And it's one of those, the black and white photography in that film is absolutely cracking. I'll stop boring on about that. It's 3 o'clock this afternoon on Film 4. What is your recommendation for tomorrow? I think we've probably all seen it or seen chunks of it. It's a cracking film, though. Unbelievable, it's only 25 years old now. Saving Private Ryan, Van Connor.
A movie I absolutely love. And you talk about like all-time performers like Gary Cooper and High Noon. I think that Tom Hanks in this movie delivers a performance in a war movie that the likes of Gary Cooper, John Wayne, Lee Marvin, people like that would look down upon and go, yeah, this kid gets it. Yeah. As you'll hear in our clip, absolutely brilliant movie from 1998. Something that we didn't quite see coming from Steven Spielberg, who was entering, I would say, his sort of middle-age period as a film, much more mature body of work that he was sending into, not quite as he would in the 2000s when he started doing things like Munich, but this is his sort of Schindler's List era. And this is when he started going digital as well, and we wound up with like the Omaha Beach scene at the start of this. Tom Hanks plays Captain Miller, the platoon leader who is dispatched across France to rescue Private Ryan, played by Matt Damon, although he's kind of a late entry into the movie. The titular character is the sole surviving brother, one of 4 brothers who've all gone to war. The other 3 have all died in rapid succession, and their mother has been delivered the news on the same day. So it's very important to the US Army that they recover the last of the Ryan boys. And it's a really emotional, because it is effectively a road movie across World War II, led by Tom Hanks, Tom Sizemore, Barry Pepper, Vin Diesel, Giovanni Ribisi. It's a great cast in this. Adam Goldberg, for instance. But it's all about, for me, that Tom Hanks performance. It's on 9 p.m, 5-star Saturday night. I've got a great clip for you. This is that moment that would have had all the old dogs looking down on high with a smile. This is Tom Hanks giving it the Oscar sizzle reel moment.
Here we go then. It's on 5-star. It's 9 o'clock tomorrow night. It is, of course, Saving Private Ryan. I think fell out of favour a bit in Hollywood, partly because he was caught up in some kind of Vice Girl scandal. Tom Sizemore gives a fantastic performance in this as his sergeant, and everything works in this brilliantly. And I forgot, of course, Vin Diesel's in it, isn't he? I mean, I won't say what, he doesn't stick around too long, but he's brilliant in it, Vin Diesel. What a calling card film for him.
Spielberg discovered him for this movie, and it's kind of how Diesel wound up getting his star. He wound up getting, I think, his role in Pitch Black and Boiler Room.
Right.
I think, out of his work in this movie. A rumour has it that Diesel actually shot a sequence for it as well, because he and Spielberg became quite filmmaker buddies working on it. It's an interesting story, actually. I had no idea that Diesel was the big filmmaking nerd that he was until I started looking into the making of Saving Private Ryan.
And of course, somebody else who pops up in it, and again, I saw this film, and luckily I saw it on the big screen, first of all, and the man who was in 3 Men and a Baby and Cheers, Ted Danson, he's also fantastic in this film. Does he remind what a great actor Ted Danson could be?
You were of all people would appreciate this, but one of the great old school traditions of this as a war movie is that it does bring in some interesting or big star cameos in small roles like Ted Danson. There's a role for Nathan Fillion in there. He wasn't really a star at the time. He's still not really a star now, but he's one of those sort of kind of figures now. He has quite a memorable appearance in this as well, where you get these characters who are only introduced for a single memorable scene. Some of them are big name actors like Ted Danson, some of them are just memorable performers like Nathan Fillion, but I do love that about the movie. It has some really great, even if they are short, memorable performances.
And we should say it's not the shortest of war films, so you might want to record it and whiz through the commercials, but if you're a 5-star executive, you don't want me to say that anyway. So that's tomorrow night, Saturday night, 9 o'clock on 5 Star. Now, my recommendation is at 5 to 11 tomorrow night, close to the witching hour, for a rather fine film from 2007, based on a graphic novel. I think there have been a few of them now. It's called 30 Days of Night, and some bright spark in the comic book world worked out that within the Arctic Circle, there are towns that, as we know, see very little light at all, maybe sometimes for weeks or even a whole month, and they focus down on one of those, and when this happens, there are 30 days of night, which means that vampires can turn up, and they're very scary vampires indeed, and basically treat the whole town as a wedding buffet or a smorgasbord, and they're killing people at random in there. Danny Houston's great in this as the kind of king of the vampires. Josh Hartnett's great in this, and this was when he seemed to be going to be one of the, the hugest stars in Hollywood. It's around the time, or just after, I think he made Pearl Harbor, that kind of film. I think this did good business, but not great business, if memory serves. I mean, it's a good solid film, this, and it's very scary the first time you see it, but he's never really set the kind of box office alight, has he, Josh Hartnett, on his own, I think?
No, Josh Hartnett in recent years has been quite blunt about his fortunes, in saying that he turned down certain directors and that he regrets turning down now and things like that. He was in contention to be Batman at one point, and that's something he deeply regrets now. And fair play to him. He does seem to have pursued projects that have interested him, at least. And we look at like the resurgence of Nicolas Cage. Everyone loves a comeback, and Josh, I think, is seemingly due one. He seems to be picking some more interesting projects at the moment that are getting increasingly higher profile. This one was, at the time, though, kind of a low-key hit, particularly amongst the emerging geek scene of around 2006, 2007, because around that era, when the internet, sort of social media, kind of became a bit more prominent, and Heroes was on TV, the Transformers movie starts, things like that, geek culture kind of began its final push into crossing over into the mainstream, and 30 Days of Night was one of those titles that carried. It was also a big hit on Blu-ray at the time, because the PS3 was quite big at that point. Blu-ray was starting to find its way into homes, and 30 Days of Night, with its low-key, because it had British creds as well, it had horror streaks, it had ties to Carpenter and things like that. It's a very, very enjoyable movie. There's a great big comic book franchise behind it as well. As you say, it spawned some sequels. There's a terrible one, direct-to-DVD they made, called 30 Days of Night Dark Days, which is pure trash. Yeah. Never ever.
And there was a kind of animated version I've got somewhere, half an hour one or 20-minute one that came out as a DVD extra, I think, of one of the versions of this. And of course, it was around this time that another film, much more like Rubber, was released, Black Sheep, the kind of New Zealand horror film about killer sheep, if you can imagine that, which is slightly spoofier. This, though, is a full-on, straight-ahead horror film, great special effects as well. It's on 5 to 11 tomorrow night on the Horror Channel, which is a Freeview channel. Here's a chunk of the trailer.
We need you at the station.
Copy that.
Board the windows. Try to hide. They're coming.
They? Who are they?
30 Days of Night. There we go. My final recommendation is, it's on the London Live Freeview channel, which I think is channel 117. It's all over the country, but 117 on your Skybox. You can find it elsewhere. And they've got interesting films. So on midday, they've got a film, black and white film starring Paul Newman and Sidney Poitier. Louis Armstrong turns up. It's called Paris Blues. A great film about the jazz scene in Paris set in the very early 60s. But my recommendation is a great football film, dramatised version of the awful, appalling Munich air crash when the Busby Babes were kind of decimated, when it seemed that many, Man United itself might have been in danger of folding. It's made for television. This was released theatrically. Don't you ever seen this, man, from 2011? Great cast. David Tennant plays a man called Jimmy Murphy, who is the Man United assistant manager. Dougray Scott is fantastic as a very stern, very believable Matt Busby. Other people in it as well. Jack O'Connell's great in it as well as Bobby Charlton. So it's a cracking film dramatisation of the dreadful events around the Munich air disaster, and of course the fight back of Man United, and the whole world of football was willing them on to get back together and willing them on to succeed. So it's a real kind of, if you have tears, prepare to shed them if you're a football fan. When you watch this on London Live, Sunday night, 11 p.m, it's called United. Here's a quick bit of the trailer.
Manchester! 2 goals on your debut, I'd call that showing off.
I bet there's plenty of girls would like you.
Don't tell them you're a footballer. Maximum playing wage is £15 a week.
In the quarter-finals of the European Cup, the mighty Reds now face an away tie against Red Star Belgrade.
League rules require you to be back in England.
You're chartering a private plane.
This is how movie stars live, lads.
The plane's crashed. We don't know who's alive.
So far, we know there are 23 survivors.
The finest soccer team Britain has produced.
Manchester United had made friends all over Europe.
The whole country love these lads. We didn't realise it till now.
We're going to shut down Manchester United Football Club.
I know those lads better than anyone. I found them.
They repaid this club with their skill and their passion, and now their lives.
It's not about their memory, it's about showing who we are to the world. Because how we are in the future will be founded on how we behave today.
Getting the thumbs up the one through the glass from Alex Irons, the producer. I'm filling up blubbing a bit here. It's fascinating how times change. Don't tell those girls you're a footballer. We've got a maximum wage of 15 quid a week. How times change, Ed Connor.
Oh, indeed.
£15 a second, some of them earn now. And let's end with your final recommendation, which I think is on Film 4 on Sunday night, 11:10. I'm guessing this probably isn't a horror film, or is it? The Dressmaker.
No, very much not. This is Jocelyn Morehouse's dark-hearted adaptation of the best-selling novel from 2015. This stars Kate Winslet. And, to be honest with you, the general unwritten rule of this one is if you've got an Australian movie and you can get Hugo Weaving into a dress, we all know we're in for a good time, as Priscilla, Queen of the Desert proved.
Absolutely. He's a man, of course, who turns up as the big sort of arch villain in the Matrix series, that guy.
Mr. Anderson, you know the one. Yeah, he joins a cast that includes Winslet, Liam Hemsworth, and Judi Davis. Stars Winslet as Tilly Dunnage. She is a woman surrounded in scandal. She's been, run out of her small rural Australian town decades previous, returns with a vengeance to set herself up as, the haute couture tailor, and sets about wreaking havoc and scandal in, a very buttoned-down community that she returns from. I've got a clip for you. This is on Film 4 on Sunday night, by the way, at 11:10. Great one to cap off the weekend with. It's like I say, it is quite a dark-hearted, quite funny, kind of enjoyably, gleefully nasty movie. Great sort of fun turn from Winslet, and of course Hugo Weaving having an absolute ball. Like I say, get Hugo Weaving in a dress, we're in for a good time, and you can hear the pair here as they meet for the very first time.
Marvellous stuff. Here we go. It's The Dressmaker. It's on Sunday night, Film 4, 11:10. It's from 2015.
Dior.
Very good, Sergeant Ferret. My design, but Dior inspired.
Myrtle Dunnage.
Tilly.
You grew up.
You got old.
Sad, but true.
What have I done this time?
Fine leather can be irreparably damaged by moisture and mildew. Tilly.
How's my mother?
Molly doesn't get out much these days. Did anyone know you were coming?
They'll know soon enough.
That's normally the horrible moment when the heroine unwittingly reveals in a 1940s film she's got evidence that could convict the killer. He says, Have you shown this to anyone else, my dear? And does anyone know you're here? ... That's a good film. Now, tell us how we can hear you and Rebecca Perfect, who's with us on Monday, in your off-screen podcast, please, Van.
Yes, you can hear us on podcast platforms from 6 a.m, as you can every Friday on the Off-Screen Show with your guide to everything new in cinemas for the weekend, everything on Freeview for the next 7 days, and on streaming and disc as well. Some fun times this week when we actually get to talk about Limitless, which is a movie I love and get to revisit every few years. That comes up in Freeview for us this week, as well as we're all going to the World's Fair, which has been quite buzzy in the online horror scene of late.
Marvellous stuff there, and he's with us next week, of course. We'll be back in Blighty by then. That was Van Cullen. Of course, once again, the podcast is called Off Screen. Van Cullen and Rebecca Perfect. He mentioned the weekend. We've got the weekend's weather coming up from the Met Office.